All right. Andrea Petrut.
Yes.
Did I do okay?
Yes.
Welcome to the Positioning to Profit podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And it is a pleasure to host you here today. Before we get started, I want to give people kind of a precursor to what we're going to be covering, because before we hit the live button, we had a little bit of a chit chat around a theme that we believe will resonate with you, the listener. And it is about how to choose the right relationships in business. So this is going to be a really great episode. But first and foremost, Andrea, welcome.
Thank you so much, Patty. This is such an amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So I was supposed to say that you are a co-empowerment coach. You're a facilitator, a thought leader, and really somebody that is moving the needle in terms of the expression of what it means to have a healthy relationship, right? So it can apply to whether you're in business or personal. But for context, we're talking about professionally what the relationships are. Now, this is something that I have personally come across as one of the biggest setbacks I had on more than one occasion, is getting into the wrong kind of relationship in business. But again, before we hit the go live button, we were talking about how many times, for you, the listener, how many times have you gotten into a business deal, taking on a potential client, collaborating with somebody because they asked you, maybe you were afraid to say no, you needed the money, you were like, oh my gosh, I have to pay rent, or I'm going to close everything down if I don't take this business and I really need it. So that in and of itself puts you in a precarious situation. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who is going to share with us how to find those healthy relationships in business and not compromise who we are. So take it away. That's a big one.
It is a big one, Patty. And I remember one of your episodes, and you mentioned about inner work. You always, when you talk about yourself, you talk about there's a piece which is the inner work. And this is what I discovered myself. First and foremost is, what is your system of values? What's your integrity? If you don't have that integrity, if you still are going through trauma, or have still trauma or adverse childhood experiences to heal from, if you still haven't had the breakthroughs you need inside, every relationship, personal or in business, that you are getting yourself into is gonna have some issues.
Mhm.
Because you are the sun that's shining upon everything in your life. And like you say, Pat, maybe in every episode, you mentioned something because this is important to you. You've discovered it on yourself. When you get to that level where you value yourself, you know who you are, you know your gift, you know why you're here. You always say, I know why I'm here on earth, at least in that episode that I really love. And when you know why you're here, when you know the values that not only you lead yourself by, but the values of your business, you're going to filter everything upon that. But if you don't have that, then you're lacking the strength you need. And it happened to me too. I was not aware of my own values. I was not aware of my own gifts. I was not aware of, what am I to do here? What's my role? How can I contribute to the world? And I let in my life people who not only affected me personally, but also, unfortunately, I got tangled in business, and it really hurt me bad, really bad, bad to the point where I was like, how do I get out of this? And it's not okay. So I've learned to first look inside me and ask myself important questions like, what's my lifestyle? How do I want to live? How do I want to be treated? What's most important for me in life? And we gotta ask ourselves these questions and find our system, the system that gives us the core, that gives us this inner alignment, so that when something shows up in our life, we're gonna filter upon that. Oh, are you also? Yes. No. Okay. Goodbye. And we have the strengths that I think you touched upon. We have the strength to say no. when it's a no, and we say hell yeah when
Yeah.
it's a yeah.
It's so true. And I think the thing here is that when we're starting out in this journey of becoming an entrepreneur, it's so externally focused. I found that we're like, okay, I got to get my website. I have to talk to people about what I do. I have to work on my elevator pitch. I have to get out there and be known or whatever. But we never, interestingly enough, we never introspectively check in, tune in, understand what our true north is to recognize what is it that I want. Because I can tell you, for all the coaching that I've done, most people will focus on what they don't want, but it is very rare the person that really focuses on what they do want. And it happens a lot. And so one of the things that it took me so long, it took me way too long for me to really identify what I wanted when it came to the relationships that I wanted in business. And so one of the things that happens is that there's a fear of loss, maybe, or a fear of I'm going to miss out or there won't be enough. How would you recommend people overcome those real types of fears that creep up as we are distilling what we deserve and really choosing that?
When we don't have the core settled yet, I would I would look and as an observer to the other side because it's hard to see ourselves. But if we're looking to the other side, to the proposal, to the business partners or whatever they could be, just looking at them and then ask if that person was very close to me, would I have dinner with them? Would I take them out on a date? Would I see how far you would go with that person? And if there's a gut instinct that there's something inside of you who says, no, something is off there. Okay, listen to that. If you want to dig deeper, like what's off, then remember where that feeling appeared. Was it when they spoke about something? Was it when they treated somebody else? Because here's the thing, I even recently, a mentor of mine said, I advise you to watch how people treat the people who serve them in restaurants or whatever. If you don't like how they treat them, if they don't treat the other person with respect, don't think that they're going to treat you or somebody who's a business partner or employee in a different way. There's something off there. It's clearly a red flag.
Mhm.
Go. Don't get involved. We always have clear signs on the outside, gestures, voice, used words in somebody else's speech, attitudes towards us or somebody else. There are signs, visual, smells, energies, I don't know, whatever is your gift in there, just take that in and then ponder. And one thing that I think my father told me is to give myself at least 24 hours
Oh,
to make a decision,
yeah.
because when we do that, we take some time to rest, to do something fun, whatever, to get into a different state. I've noticed for myself, for instance, I was in a position where I was discussing with somebody who was very imposing. And I didn't have that empowerment yet to be able to look at that person and say, no, no, I don't want to be with you. Um, I was like, I feel they're right, but there's something wrong. I don't know what. And I had the urge to say something to make a decision, but then I had this thought of, no, give yourself 24 hours, just give yourself 24 hours. Because in 24 hours, here's another thing. You can speak to somebody like you, Pat, right? If you're a coach, people come to you and ask you questions. So you ask your mentor, your coach, your life partner, your parents, somebody you trust, somebody you know has a very logical, rational, practical view on life and people, or somebody who has much more experience than you, and just tell them how you felt, tell them some things, and ask for their advice. It's so good to give yourself time.
It is good. I know we have a tendency to jump in and just maybe make a decision. I've done it where you make a decision because you want to please the other person. So I've said yes when I really didn't want to do something, or I'm like, okay, I let somebody convince me. And I heard a quote a while back, and it was like, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, meaning eventually you will come full circle to the real answer that you wanted in the first place. So much wasted time when I've done that. And it's also the other thing that I get whenever I've compromised what I want first is that during the entire interaction, if it's a client engagement, it feels heavy. It feels really heavy to work with somebody that you're not supposed to be working with. And I'm mentioning all this because this is what I've personally gone through, and it's gotten me in really bad spots where it's gotten really heavy, troublesome, legal issues, and it's just not fun. It's not fun. That's not what your business is supposed to be. So, can you talk a little bit about like catching yourself before you get to that space, or giving yourself time is such a great tip. Do you have maybe another tip, or maybe a client that you've worked with that you helped her or this client to see, find the empowerment within to step into what they really wanted? Because it can be really scary for some people.
Yes, I actually had a client, and with the same client, I had even my own reaction. So, as a coach, my reaction was, I don't feel joyful. It doesn't fulfill me to work with this client.
Yeah.
But I love her. What's going on there? My truth was that it wasn't at the deep level as I would feel fulfilled. It was the right person, it was the right time, it was right for her, it was perfectly fine. But looking at my gifts and what I'm ready for, it wasn't at the level that would challenge me, would really help me.
Yeah.
And the other side of the client is the client had a situation where she was mistreated, she was not respected. And in the same time, every time she would say something, the other person, more or less narcissistic, more or less passive aggressive,
Yeah.
would respond in specific ways and would not respect her, would not listen. And what happened is it was a bit of a healing that needed to happen because that person, my client, is a person who suffered childhood trauma.
Mm,
And that's not easy to work with.
right.
That's not easy to deal with. And it took us some sessions before she find her own way to deal with that, and realizing that if it's not a person that is essential for your life, and even if it is,
Yeah.
if you're not leaving with that person, and again, even if you would live with that person, you still have to make a choice that's safe for you,
Yeah.
that is loving for you. You also talk about self love, Patty, and you gotta love yourself to the point where you put those boundaries in and you don't accept less than, and let them choose. Somebody told me, I have mentors, I have friends, I have coaches that I rely on because I can't do this on my own. I need help too. I have blind spots.
Of
And
course.
one of my friends said to me at some point, not just about boundaries, but about thinking that the other people, which we all know actually, but we it takes a while to get into our minds. Other people have their own opinions and they are responsible for their own reactions, responses, and opinions. You gotta be who you are.
Yes.
And like you also say, Pat, somebody's gonna hear your message, somebody's gonna resonate with your message, and somebody won't. Just be you and then let the other people choose how they want to interact with you.
And the important thing is just to stand on your own and know that it's enough. Your message is enough. What you have to say, how you can help is enough, and not bend over backwards or be something you're not, because it doesn't work long term. It's not a long-term strategy. And just it doesn't make good business sense, because inevitably you're going to show up the way that you are intended to be, and then the person's going to be like, wait a minute, what? This isn't what I signed up for, or I didn't know you felt like this. It just, you're taking the long road to nowhere. You know what I mean? It's just taking the hard route where it doesn't have to be hard. And so this is a thing that I've painstakingly realized. And I keep going back to what I've personally gone through, because I look back and it was a really important experience for me to have, that I was wasting so much time because I was so fearful of, oh, what if they get mad at me? What if this and that? And at the root of that is I didn't appreciate myself enough to stand up and say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take on, this isn't the right fit. This doesn't feel right. And that really requires a bit of courage, right? A bit of courage to stand on your own. So can you talk about that? Like, how do we develop that courage?
My point of view is that fear can be your friend. And I see fear as, let's say, could be a veil or maybe even a character. To make it easier, make it into a character. And I look fear, we have this saying, look fear into the face, into its face. So I look it into the face and say, and
Yeah.
yes, I am afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose my image. I'm going to lose whatever. Okay, I acknowledge my fears. It's good to know what your fears are, because here's one thing about empowerment, about anything in life, is once you spot something, once you observe it, once you make it visible to your mind, to your consciousness, to yourself, it becomes nothing. Like this. It's just an illusion, it's just a perception. So look fear into its face and acknowledge all the fears you have, acknowledge the level of the fear and be with it. Fear is there to teach us something. Fear is there to show us, like many say, to show us that we are ready for a breakthrough. We are we have that fear because we are at the moment we need to be to step up.
Yeah.
Fear is just a sign we're ready. So when fear comes, you could do like I do. You can go through it like through a door, if that's possible for you. If not, you take it as a friend and say, okay, come with me. We're gonna go together. We're gonna go together through this wall. We're gonna go together at this meeting. We're gonna say together these things. And fear will not become a foe. Fear will become a sign that's gonna be there for you, letting you know, hey, did you know you're ready?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about seeing it as a cue that you're ready for more. And honestly, I've gone through the situation where, okay, that feels pretty good. You know what I mean? That I did that, or that the actual act of walking through fear and realizing that you're stronger on the other side of it. I'm a big fan of scaring myself every now and then and getting out of my comfort zone, because truly that's where real growth comes from. And I think the important thing to notice the way that you had said it, Andrea, is like being really cognizant that you need that support along the way. Because I promise you, chances are, if you, the listener, are trying to do it alone, it's easier to retreat and stay safe. But if you work through with a coach like Andrea and realize this is what I'm scared of, this, you can work through it together, which is why reaching out and getting proper support with a coach is so essential to help you grow. That's the thing with entrepreneurship. It's the greatest personal development school ever, I think.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, because I know we're also getting closer to more to your podcast, it's about feeling safe. It's about finding who is that person you feel safe with to share those fears, because it's a vulnerable thing and we want to be held, we want to be supported. We want somebody to who can hold that space so we can do whatever we need to do with that person to have the breakthrough. That's so important. And honestly, maybe you've noticed that too. Not all the coaches really offer that space. I've been treated myself by others with that authoritarian attitude, man up, whatever. And I'm looking at them, I don't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And that's why it's really important as you're vetting the different types of support, recognize what do you really need? Is it like the more coercing type of thing, like get over it? That doesn't work for everybody, to your point. And it's like saying, okay, especially to your point, if somebody is working through having trauma or healing the wounded child within, and oh my gosh, even more being nurtured and recognizing that you are looking and seeking the support of a coach in that light to be nurturing and supportive. I think that's absolutely essential. So be discerning. if you're looking for the right kind of coach, and know that you have the right to vet carefully to say, does this person resonate with me? Again, it goes into the whole idea of finding the relationship, the resonance with the other person, which is really essential.
Yeah, just to sum up what we started with, find your values. I would say five values, because for business, right, we need five values. For our brand, we need five. And when it's a personal brand, it's basically the same. Find those five values you live by and your best business is led by. Find the principles and criteria you want to have and create in your relationships, which for personal also goes to business, but adds more. Because in business, for instance, when you do a strategic alliance or a joint venture, you want more. You need more people around you to advise you what's the best thing, what kind of contract clauses and whatnot. So you go deeper into that. You need legal support,
Yeah,
but the basis is the same. Who is the person you want to spend your time with? Who is the person you want to talk on the phone with? Who's the person you want to have deals with every day if you have to multiple times a day? Pick
yeah,
your employees, your people you delegate things to in the same way. Who would you love to have in your life and why? Find those things and then pick upon that criteria.
great advice. Great advice. All right, we are transitioning to the fast five questions where I ask you five questions and you answer organically. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, question number one. What would make this year a great year for you?
Wow, such a great question. Living in Romania for 3 months with my family.
Oh, I love that.
Going home,
Yeah,
going home three
going
months.
home. I love it. Number two, what would you consider your greatest achievement?
Knowing who I am.
That's a great answer.
It took a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Person, place, or a thing. What is one thing that inspires you?
Love. When I feel the love in a child's eyes, in my husband's speech or whatever, in a friend's message, or when I just see people loving each other or loving life, that inspires me.
I love that. Number four, what is one thing that you wish somebody would have told you when you first started your business?
Start with your point of view.
Yes. Yes.
Because I didn't do that and it was so hard at the beginning. And now I'm going back where I should have been to really go as high as I can.
Excellent. And the last question, after all is said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
My message to the world is now we are one, we are born connected. All we need to do is to remember. And my legacy is not just to say it, but to give people the experience of this oneness so they can take it with them in their homes, in their lives, in their businesses, in their communities and partnerships, so that we can all remember at once and make this world this amazing place that it can be.
I love that. Beautiful, beautifully stated. I felt that. All right. So how do people find out more about you, your work? How do people start the process of engaging with you, Andrea?
You can find me on LinkedIn, use my name, or my website, andreapetrut.ca, and you have links with everything there. And the things Patty and I, sorry, we talked about today regarding relationships, you can find questions to ask yourself and this lead magnet that I have on my website, get clarity on your relationship. So use that and tell us how it went.
Perfect. So that's okay. So I'm going to spell it out for people. You can also find it on our show notes page, but it's Andrea, Andrea Petrut. So I'm just going to anglicize it. Petrut.ca. Andrea Petrut.ca. So go there and you'll receive the 7 keys to clarity, a quick 9-page guide to move you forward in your aligned, loved, and the relationships that you envision. Beautifully stated. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I so appreciate you. I love your energy. It's so full of love. And I wish you continued success because you deserve it all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Same to you and everybody listening.
Thank you.